Hello, everybody, and welcome to Work Ready, using AI in your job search. My name is Ole Kagan. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator with LA County Library, and I welcome you to this program today. I'm so happy that you are joining me to talk about this very important topic. Doesn't it feel like AI is just everywhere these days? So what we're going to do today is we're going to discuss this rapidly evolving technology that can really evoke a lot of passions. Some people are afraid and concerned about AI, and they have a point. And some people, sometimes the same people, are using AI to their benefit, both at work and to find work. And this latter thing is what we're going to be talking about today. Now, there is a lot to unpack about AI. It's a fairly complicated topic. And so I'm not going to be covering the deep intricacies of how AI works. We just don't have time for that. What I'm going to be doing is giving you an introduction to artificial intelligence and then get right into how AI can help you in your job search with practical examples that you can take and use right after this program. But first, who am I? I mentioned already, my name is Oleg. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for LA County Library. I'm not a computer scientist. I'm a librarian, and I've been teaching computers for over 2 decades now. It's one of my passions to share how computers work and how they can help you. I feel like computers can be intimidating for a lot of people, and especially trending technologies that are fairly newly applied and applicable to regular people are things that people see in the papers and aren't sure how to use. And my passion is to help you understand how something like AI works and how it can help you. So that moves us to the purpose of today's program, and that is artificial intelligence is everywhere these days. So we're going to talk about a few approachable AI ideas, and then we're going to skip over to how it can help you in your job search. I'm going to try to make all the concepts as accessible as possible. But if you're interested in learning more about AI, you want to get deeper into this complex topic, you absolutely can. And I encourage that. And I'm going to give you some links and some classes and books that you can then check out from the library. You can access the classes from your computer at home for free with your library card and learn more about the foundations of artificial intelligence. So let's get into that here. What is artificial intelligence? Well, here is a fairly long definition that I'll break down for you in a few minutes. As a field of computer science, artificial intelligence encompasses and is often mentioned together with machine learning and deep learning. These disciplines involve the development of AI algorithms modeled after decision-making processes of the human brain that can learn from available data and make increasingly more accurate classifications or predictions over time. Now, in a moment, I'm going to cover machine learning and deep learning. But before that, I want to let you know that the link on this slide is a really fantastic page that goes on for a fairly long time about artificial intelligence, its history, and its various applications today. So if you're interested in AI, you're going to get this slide later on by email. And I encourage you to click on it and check out IBM's page on artificial intelligence. But first, let's jump into machine learning. So machine learning is all about training a computer to perform specific tasks, like playing chess or interpreting X-rays. Now, the computer is trained on specific data. It might be images, for X-rays, it might be statistical models. It might be data like what people are clicking when they go to certain websites. And it goes over and over that data, and a person would then tell it, okay, label this pattern like this, label this pattern like this, and eventually you'll see what you see on Amazon.com, Amazon recommendations, because many people click a certain thing, the computer goes, okay, this makes sense. If somebody likes this, they might like this. Or for instance, facial recognition on Google Photos. So if you have Google Photos, you know that it does facial recognition, and it'll actually grab a bunch of people that look similar or a bunch of faces that are exactly the same person, and you can label that face, and then you can type that person's name into the search box in your Google Photos, and it'll bring up all the photos of that person. The interesting thing about Google Photos is that it even does people who are at different ages. So my son, he's fairly young, and it has actually asked me, "Hey, is this him? You know, when he was a baby?" And then like, "Is this him when he was 4 and older?" And I say, "Sure." And then I have pictures of him growing up, and you just type in his name, and there it is. That's machine learning. Now, deep learning is a complex subset of machine learning. Now, these artificial neural networks are composed of multiple layers and hierarchies. So what the computer does is it develops connections throughout data sets independent of human labels. For instance, while machine learning is, you might tell the computer that something is a dog or a cat, once it picks out some, and then it'll go and pick out the objects that are similar, that are like pixels that create an image that are similar to that. And then they'll know, okay, this is a dog, this is a cat. Through deep learning, the computer would actually be the one that identifies the different animal species on its own. Think of deep learning as a way for computers to have a better understanding of the world around them and the relationships between objects. It's very important. An example of deep learning would be automated driving, like what we see on Tesla vehicles now and other vehicles where there's even unmanned vehicles. So what happens is that it's automatically detecting objects such as stop signs, traffic lights, and pedestrians. And through a whole bunch of data and a whole bunch of trial and error, it's determining what it sees and how to react to those things in the future. So these are fairly deep topics, deep learning. But AI has really been around for a pretty long time. While deep learning and machine learning uses highly specialized mathematical models, the idea of AI is age old. It's not a new phenomenon. Even early humans were fascinated with creating artificial life and self-operating machines that can be seen as the imaginative precursor to the ideas of artificial intelligence and robotics. The bronze automaton Talos in Greek mythology, the golem of Jewish folklore, and Dr. Frankenstein monsters, if you want to get literary, are all examples of beings on the edge of life. Now, the phrase artificial intelligence itself was coined in 1955, not too long ago, by computer scientist and Dartmouth professor John McCarthy as part of a workshop to see if computers could behave in ways that we would consider intelligent. Now, since then, there have been various attempts to create both narrowly focused and general systems to simulate functions and expressions of human cognition. And most recently, what has been trending in artificial intelligence is generative AI. Now, what the difference between that and the large language models or LLM systems that we're seeing now, with examples like ChatGPT, you might know Gemini or Claude, or items that create images like DALL-E or Midjourney, or voices like Murph, is that while these generative AI systems use deep learning and neural networks, machine learning, they interact or they express themselves as if they were human. The chatbot responds to you, and it's easy to get sidetracked and go, wait, is this a real person? They're very adept at simulating how humans talk because they are using language. So AI is used in many careers and jobs already. For instance, in medical field, it's used for identifying patient risk factors and diagnoses. And IBM's Watson on a previous slide. And in fact, this is one of the things that IBM's Watson is doing now. It's helping diagnose patients, it's identifying risk factors based on the myriad amount of data that comes for each person as compared to the data that is for many, many other patients. In transportation, we see self-driving cars. In education, we manage school records and systems. And it creates the opportunity for novel interactions with students with disabilities. In agriculture, get weather forecasting and predictive analysis to reduce errors and minimize the risk of crop failures. And of course, in areas like fashion and other creative endeavors, AI can collaborate with artists to create all sorts of fun and funky things. Now, while AI is pretty amazing in my opinion, it's not without its risks and challenges. And it's really important that we consider these, not just when we get to use AI in our work and our personal life, but also because the ethics of AI relates directly to how we use it in our job searches. There are, of course, entire courses dedicated to the ethics of AI. There are whole books written about it. So what we'll be doing here is just barely grazing the surface of the risks and challenges of artificial intelligence. And let's start with something that we can understand almost instinctually, and that is the bias in information that's possible when interacting with AI chatbots. So we talked about machine learning and deep learning, and the basis for both of those methods of creating artificial intelligence and training artificial intelligence is the data that is used. So there are many data sets that are used to train the artificial intelligence chatbots, the large language models, and it really depends on what they are. So the chatbot will necessarily have whatever bias is in a specific data set. So if you're looking at something as wide as like the internet itself has the biases of the people that are on it. And it's not everybody is online. So there are certain people that are overrepresented online. And so the chatbots, if they're trained on web data, will also carry those biases. Now, artificial intelligence is also given feedback by human testers, using reinforcement learning with human feedback, or RLHF. And so sometimes it'll overcorrect for the internets or whatever the data set biases are. And then we get all kinds of weird stuff. Like Google recently apologized because in a really surreal twist, when somebody asks for images of Nazi soldiers, Google generated images, or Google's Gemini, which is its chatbot, generated images of Nazi soldiers who were Asian and Black. And you can imagine that this is such a very strange thing that only an AI would come up with. So we know that there's a certain amount of bias. There's a chance of misinformation with AI chatbots who don't have the common sense knowledge of most people in our regular society and environment. Now, because of that, data that the chatbot generates could be misleading. It could be completely incorrect. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. And it would be remiss not to mention at this time when we're coming up on an election and the amount of political information is just proliferating the web and is in all of our faces every day. AI makes it very easy to generate disinformation and deep fakes, which is putting people's faces who are not the people in the actual photo on other images and videos. And so you'll simulate the face of somebody saying something that's not actually what they said, or something that somebody else said. It just makes it very confusing. And I want to give you an example of that, but a sort of innocuous one. I'm going to stop sharing real quick, and then I'm going to share my browser window and show you an Instagram account that will show just how easy it is for AI to be used to generate something that's not exactly real. So this right here is the account of little Michaela. Little Michaela doesn't exist. She or it is an artificially generated person. Using artificial intelligence, a company has created little Michaela and her account. So I'm going to show this to you right here. And it's amazing because if you didn't know that it was not real, it would be very difficult to make that determination. I mean, nobody would think, oh, this is obviously artificial intelligence. This is actually generated by an AI. You click over here to tagged and you see Michaela with other people. Computers are amazing and also a little bit scary. So know that this is possible with AI and be careful with what you are seeing. So I'm going to stop sharing this for now and we'll move on to other ethical considerations. All right, so I'm going to bring up my presentation once again. Give me one moment here. So the next consideration when it comes to the challenges of AI would be ethical considerations. Now, I was talking about all those data sets that AI systems and the creators of AI systems are hoovering up in order to train the chatbots. Well, a lot of them are based on creative work and content created by artists, writers, and other people that have not given permission for their items to be used in the training of chatbots. And so there is a lot of legal conversation happening right now about the copyright situation when it comes to training chatbots. The other thing to consider is the expectations of privacy. Now, because when you chat with an artificial intelligence, it feels like you're chatting with an actual person. You're in a chat room and you're by yourself and you're writing something and they're writing something back. You have a feeling that is just, really just you, but the illusion is that there's just the two of you. But in fact, there's no expectation of privacy with AI chatbots. And you can get further proof of that by going and reading the terms of service of these chatbots, which say, of course, that the companies have access to all that information. So if you commit a crime, don't tell a chatbot. But in general, more seriously, don't put personally identifiable information into the chatbots, not because the company will do something illicit with it. Probably won't happen, but just because you never know. You don't know who's going to be looking at it on the other end. So be weary of putting your social security number or any real sensitive data into the chatbot because there's no expectation of privacy. Another ethical consideration would be, when does something that the AI wrote or that you wrote with AI assistance become something that is not authored by you, but is authored by the AI? When is the threshold where it's basically plagiarism or stealing work that's not yours or taking credit for work that you really didn't create? One example of this that we'll talk about later is in cover letters. You can get the AI to write a whole cover letter for you. But is that ethical? Is did then you turning that into a company, is that actually your work? That's something that you have to consider, and each of us really has to consider. When do we feel like what the AI has created is no longer our own? Finally, something that's pretty important to think about is that AI is not foolproof. We mentioned just a moment ago this illusion that you're talking to the AI and it feels like you're talking to a person. And so you have the sense that it has the sort of common sense that you and I have. But in fact, it doesn't. It's a computer and it's going to generate things that are going to make you go, huh? And sometimes you're not even going to know to go, huh? Because you have a certain amount of inherent trust in a system that mimics a human. But you have to be aware that the computer makes errors And based on either the probabilistic complexity of the data that it has or the data set that it within itself had errors, it can create the illusion of correct information that's actually not. One example of something that I've experienced that is generated by the computer rather by a chatbot is that I had asked, yeah, I don't remember which chatbot it was. I think maybe ChatGPT a while ago, when it came out. And so this may have been fixed now, but at that time it wasn't. To generate a list of books for me, give me all of the books that are, the best books of American literature from 1900 to 1950. Okay, so it gave me a list, but some of the books were published in like the 1870s and some of them were published in the 1960s. So I thought, oh, that's weird. Like it can come up with books, but it's really bad at dates. Or for instance, when I've asked it questions about things that I knew about, so like give me the most popular books by X author. It's not like the most popular author out there. It's a fairly obscure author. And it gave me a list of books, and I thought, I've never heard of this one or this one. And the thing is, I knew a fair amount about this author. And so I double checked because it didn't seem like that author had written these books. And in fact, it didn't. The chatbot just made them up. And so you never really know when it does that. So you always have to be weary. Likewise, sometimes it'll generate a response for you, depending on your prompt, but it'll generate a response that doesn't make any sense. So what I've seen recently posted on social media is hiring managers posting a sentence from somebody's cover letter. And I've seen several examples of this where the sentence didn't make any sense. It was basically just gibberish. And they conjectured that the person who wrote that or the people who submitted those cover letters either used the same sample from some online source and didn't proofread it themselves, or they used AI to generate these sentences and then again didn't proofread it. And so they just blindly sent it in, trusting the chatbot. And hire manager saw it and said, well, I'm putting this resume or putting this cover letter away. I don't need this. So you have to be weary and proofread what you see. All right, now the moment we've all been waiting for, using AI in your job search. I've got some great examples of how you can use AI in your job search that are practical and that you can apply right now, today, after this program. The first one is one that I really find to be the medicine for being jaded in a job search or not being able to find the job you're looking for. Because the artificial intelligence, because the chatbot is responsive and based on some data, it can generate and really be a good conversation partner for you when you're not sure where to go next. So for instance, something that I asked Claude, which is what we see on the screen here, is to explore alternate job titles. So here's an example. So let's say you're searching for a job for an office manager, and you've been typing office manager into LinkedIn and Indeed.com, and you've been getting certain results. Well, that's great, but you want to expand that. So what are some other ways you can say office manager? So what I did was ask Claude, what are some other names for the position of office manager? And it responded, Administrative Services Manager, Business Operations Manager, Facilities Coordinator, Office Administrator, Operations Coordinator, Executive Assistant, Office Supervisor, Administrative Director, Workplace Manager, and Business Support Manager. Now, some of these are indeed really good sort of synonyms for office manager. So what do you do in your job search now? So you have this information. So why not put business operations manager into your LinkedIn job search or your Indeed or Monster.com or ZipRecruiter or whatever job board you're looking for? Put that into the search bar. Now all of a sudden you've expanded your job search and you're getting a whole bunch more roles that you're qualified for. And you're not stuck with just one sort of office manager job. And many jobs have alternate titles, alternate ways to write them. So this is one way that you can use the AI as your brainstorming partner. Similarly, you can consider roles that are sort of adjacent to what you're interested in or what a job you were already in. So what I did before was I asked, what are some jobs, other jobs that use the same skills as a librarian? And I think I had asked Gemini, which is Google's chatbot, and Gemini gave me 15 results. And I gotta say, probably 10 of them were really plausible. They use the skills that a librarian uses, and they are actually jobs that I probably could transition into if I wanted to. And you can do that for other careers as well, whatever you're interested in. If you wanna, if you're currently working in retail, what are some jobs that use the same skills as a, retail salesperson? Or if you work as an office manager, what are some jobs that use the same skills as an office manager? And then the AI will bounce back to you, a list of jobs. And you look at those and say, huh, I never thought about that, but it's true. They can what's called, they can use the same skills. And now all of a sudden you've got areas where you can consider other car- career paths. Finally, you can ask questions that are even more exploratory. Now, I'm saying questions. Of course, the technical name for what you're giving the chatbot is prompts. So prompting is the technical name for speaking to a chatbot, but I'm using questions because it's a little bit easier for all of us to understand. It's a little bit more colloquial. So what we see here is asking exploratory questions. So the one I thought of, just off the top of my head, I thought it was kind of interesting. I was actually curious what it would say is, I'm interested in being in the medical field, but can't stand the sight of blood. What are some options for me that don't require a graduate degree? And indeed, when I did that, the chatbot responded with, again, really useful, plausible options of jobs where you're not going to see blood that are in the medical field, no gruesomeness, and that don't require a university degree. So maybe a certification or some on-the-job training. So if you have certain work values that are really important to you, whether that be that you need to work remotely or that you want to have a flexible schedule, or if you're in the medical field and don't want to see blood, or whatever it is, you want to help people. You want to be you definitely want to be in a service profession. Purpose driven jobs. Put that in as an exploratory question within Chatbot and see what comes up. You may have thought of some of the options that will give you, but other options may be fairly eye opening. And so the one really exciting way to use AI is for inspiration to help you break out of that slump. Okay, let's say you've been talking to the AI, you've got some great job titles lined up. Now you have to create your materials. What are the main materials for a job search? Of course, those are resumes and cover letters. And this is where many people get hung up because maybe writing is not their main skill. They haven't written a resume for a pretty long time. Have no fear. Chatbots can help you. All right. So what I did for this section of the program was to actually create a resume example, which you'll be able to access once I send you the slides, but I'm going to show you right now. I actually created a example resume solely using Gemini. I'm going to show you what that looks like. And while I show you that, you'll be able to see exactly what I mean by using an artificial intelligence to help you create jobs. So let me see. I'm going to need to share with you my browser once again. Let's get back to little Michaela. So here we are. And we don't need her anymore. So we're going to say goodbye. And we're going to go to this here. I used Google Docs to create this resume for Bumper Pink Lunderfisk, an industrial designer based in Carson, California. This is not a real person. He's got a website. This is not a real website. I just made this all up in my head. But the resume looks real. I literally used Gemini to create every section of this resume: education section, experience, skills, memberships, and then I just dressed it up with some font and styling. And here we have a full resume. So how did I do that? We can start by considering the objective statement. Now, objective statements are not a necessity for resumes. Different job coaches and advisors will give you different advice and objective statements. Some people say definitely put it in. Some people say you don't need it at all. Don't waste the space. Bumper Pink has one. So how did I create an objective statement? What I did was I essentially asked Gemini to create an objective statement for an industrial designer who has strong design aesthetic and interpersonal abilities, who's interested in growing past the role of a industrial designer too, which is Bumper Pink's current position. This, of course, is not a real company. So let me give you, let's just try that. So why don't we try a different objective statement? So I already have one for Bumper Pink. Let's try one for something of your choice. I'm going to look in the chat and see what people are posting. So, okay, give me a job, first of all. What job are we looking for to create an objective statement for? I'm going to look in the chat now. So, okay, what I'm seeing, okay, interesting, park ranger. Oh, that's maybe we'll do that one. Data analyst, let's see, office manager. Okay, we have it in office manager. Why don't we use the office manager? Because we used that as an example earlier. Maybe we'll use park ranger later. I like that one. So, okay, so we're looking for an office manager. I'm just going to put this information and then I'll craft the prompt once we have all the information. So office manager, and then give me like 2 skills that this person who we're writing this resume for, this fictional person, has. All right, so go ahead and put that in the chat. 2 skills of this mythical office manager. All right, so let's see here. Communication skills. I think we'll be a little bit more specific. So, okay, let's do highly organized. Okay, that's a good one. Highly organized. And let's see here. We've got, I guess I'm getting more communication, soft skills, people, highly organized, and let's say punctual. I mean, that's kind of a really specific thing, but punctual. And then what is this person looking for? Like, what are they looking for in the future? So they're looking for a, okay, I mentioned this earlier, but actually I like this. We'll use looking for work in a social justice oriented, purpose driven organization. Okay, so then I'm gonna craft this prompt. So we're gonna see, like, we've got office manager. So write me a objective statement for an office manager who is highly organized and punctual and would like to work in a social justice oriented, purpose driven organization. All right, so the only thing that I think we're missing in the statement is we're missing a length. So because objective statements need to be relatively short, why don't we do this? Why don't we say, write me let's do like a 30-word statement, objective statement for an office manager who's highly organized and punctual and would like to work in a social justice. Okay, let's try that and see what comes up. All right. Okay, so then we could take this highly organized office manager seeks a role in mission-driven organization, proven ability to streamline operations, meet deadlines, contribute to a positive, inclusive workplace culture. Not bad. Not bad. I mean, I think that if this is you, if you're an office manager who's highly organized and punctual and would like a mission-driven kind of organization, this is something that you could plausibly use. You might want to rejigger some of the text, you change it a little bit, but actually it sounds pretty good. I like that. Should we do another one? I want to do the park ranger one. I'm gonna do park ranger. Let's see. Okay, so let's do park ranger. What are some skills that this park ranger has? All right, so park ranger who, okay, oh, yeah, exactly. This is good. good at working independently, and well, they like nature, of course, but I want to see if there's something else. How can we kind of tie in the part of for liking nature? So who is, uh, I mean, I guess we'll put Kina on the outdoors. I mean, okay. Uh, Looking for a role that allows them to share the beauty of nature with the general public. Okay, so let's cue this. Let's write me an objective statement for we'll use the same kind of prompt since it worked with us before. And you can do this too. You can kind of generate a template for a prompt and then put different things in to see what comes up. But generally speaking, you can expect that if you put kind of similar, if you prompt the AI in similar ways, you're going to get results that have some kind of similarity. But the operative things that you're changing the park range, or you're changing the specific qualities. So let's see, write me a 30-word objective statement let's try for that. I'm going to add this. No, it's for a park ranger, good at working independently and who is keen on the outdoors and is looking for a role that allows them to share the beauty of nature with the general public. All right, let's see what comes up there. Enthusiastic outdoor professional seeks park ranger position. Proven ability to work independently while sharing the wonder of nature with diverse audiences. Committed to preserving and protecting natural resources. So as you can see, something like this, Gemini kind of made it up and added it, but it sounds really relevant. So it came out pretty well. I'm glad we did the park ranger one, but you can see that this really works. This really can help you craft this sort of thing. So, okay, so let's go back now to the presentation, and we're going to go and I'm going to show you some more ways that the AI can help you with the resume. So what we see here, let's go back to Bumper Pink's resume, is we've got these objective statements. We've also got this experience, and all of us have these kind of parts on our resume where we have our experience, we have the job title, company, date, and we have descriptions of the job. So think about some of these is that some of the times these statements don't demonstrate the result of our work enough. So we all are a bit jaded. I mean, if we've been doing a job for a long time, to us, it's obvious the accomplishments we've had and the impacts of our role. But when somebody's reading our resume, they may not be. And so we can use artificial intelligence. We can use these chatbots to help us make the descriptions in our resume more impactful. So how would we do that? We can, for instance, take this contributed to the design process for a variety of consumer electronics products. It's kind of a general statement, probably something a junior industrial designer does, but how can we make this stand out? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it into, let's try ChatGPT. This is just a different one. Log in here. And I'm going to type in to the prompt, can you give me some examples of how this job as a role description on a resume for an industrial designer could be more results oriented and quantifiable? I don't know if I spelled that right. I didn't. All right. And I'm going to post what I just copied and pasted. And then let's see. Okay. So here's some examples that it gave me. Led the design process for 3. So again, how many you did, real 15% increase in user satisfaction. So something that's measurable within that scope, the scope of that job, that's something you can go back to and think, okay, it is measurable. I can include that. So here, 20% reduction of production costs is an example, 30% faster time to market. So we're seeing different ways to quantify that statement. And whatever statement you put in, you might find something that you didn't think of before that you can actually quantify about your job to show your specific accomplishment and your specific impact on that role. By focusing on specific achievements, quantifiable metrics, and the direct impact of your contributions, these examples provide a clear picture of your accomplishments and their significance. Good advice. Thank you. I don't have to say thank you to ChatGPT, but I'm going to. All right, let's go back to our presentation now. All right, let me go ahead and share our slides once again. Where am I here? There it is. Okay, so we're back at this resume slide. And so to review, what we did here was we wordsmithed our objective statement. So by putting in the basics of what we want in our objective statement, we let Gemini, Google's chatbot, give us a human readable, full sentence objective statement, and then we could edit that and make it our own and throw it on our resume. We let, in this situation, ChatGPT assist with bullet points for accomplishments and job descriptions. So what did that look like? Is we copy and pasted one of our descriptions where it seems a little bit vague and we could use a little bit more punching up in terms of quantifiable results. And we asked it to give us more ways that it could do that. And we got suggestions. Finally, suggest skills you didn't know you had. So what I did on Lunderfisk's, there's a bumper pink Lunderfisk's resume, the one that's in this link down here, is I actually asked it to just give me the skills section for the resume of an industrial designer, like a mid-level industrial designer. And it gave me this, I said, give me soft skills and hard skills. So it gave me a list of software they could use, some of the people skills, some of the types. So there's 3 columns in the resume for the different types of skills. So if you are creating a resume for a job that you've had for a long time, you may not even know all the skills you have because they're just part of your day-to-day life. So if you ask a chatbot, whether it's Claude or Google's Gemini or ChatGPT, they can all give you suggestions for skills that this specific job title has and whatever your experience level and whatever other details you want to include. And it'll give you a list of skills and you go, oh, this one is good. I should put this one on my resume, or this one is good. And I should put this one on my resume. That way you can make your resume more relevant to whatever the job description is. All that together lets you craft a more impactful resume. So we get a question in the chat. Do you get different answers when asking it to do something or telling it to do something? I think you pretty much get the same responses. I go back and forth between asking, hey, would you please do whatever, or do this. I think it's pretty much the same. So this is an example from about resumes. Cover letters tend to work in a similar way, except for we have to be careful with what I talked about before, with when does a cover letter become yours and when is it completely written by an artificial intelligence, a chatbot. A cover letter needs to be personal to you, but cover letters tend to have similar templates. So what you can do is you can create a template for a cover letter and then fill in the blanks with your own experiences. Let me get back to here. So you give me a cover letter template for a data analyst position with Acme Analytics, heard about from LinkedIn. Let's see what comes up. So this is going to be just a general template. So it's not going to be able to obviously put anything, but it's going to give you some general information here. So this is exactly kind of what we're looking for. So what would a cover letter look like sans any information? Okay, you could just fill in here. I'm writing my strong interest. This is just this is a boilerplate sentence that tends to be in cover letters here. Oh, that's not letting me jump around here. Oh, there it goes. So here we got which I discovered through LinkedIn with my skills and key skills. I believe I would be a valuable addition to your team. So you can edit that a little bit, but that's pretty much what most cover letters will say. In my current role, I have, you have accomplishments. So here you would put like some kind of something that goes beyond what would be in your resume when it comes to accomplishments. You might put some kind of narrative story that shows what your skills are in relation to your accomplishments. And then I'm particularly drawn to Acme Analytics because of XYZ. So you can start with this and then move on to, okay, you could put your own, and then you can let Gemini or ChatGPT wordsmith some of the narrative that you have to make it more relevant, or make it sound more like you. Somebody asked, why does it matter if AI writes the whole cover letter if the content is based on my experience? Because a cover letter is a way for the employer to see your writing style and hear your voice. If it's somebody else writing it, then that it defeats that purpose. While your experience may be the same, it doesn't demonstrate that you can share your experience in a way that would be actually you sharing your experience. Is there a way that employers can determine if a human wrote it or a chatbot wrote it? There isn't. That's up to you. Sometimes there is. Sometimes the chatbots will be more generic in their responses and won't sound like a human voice. You can prompt it to make it more punchy, or make it sound more engaging, or you can edit it in a way that makes it sound more like you specifically wrote it. But in the end, the responsibility is yours to consider the ethical implications of whether you copy a whole cover letter wholesale from a chatbot, or you use it as an assistant to help you create your cover letter. So let's go ahead and move back into the presentation, and we'll have more examples. I hope everybody is with me here. Okay. Okay, so I mentioned using a cover letter to create a template, strengthen the impact of your stories, and show you alternative ways to express the same ideas. So if you have a work-related story that just isn't getting through, there's something missing, something you do is, of course, put it into the template, or put keywords or like key sentences from it, and have Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT reword it for you. And then from that, you might be inspired to then tell it in a different way that may convey your message better. So composing your materials is another important way that AI can help you in your job search. But how about the interview? Of course, you're working with a chatbot, and I've tried this with, just out of curiosity, tried this with Gemini the other day. I prompted it to interview me as if I was applying for the job of a senior librarian in a small library system. And basically, can you interview me as if you were, with 3 questions, as if you were the director of that library system? And Gemini did a really solid job of basically asking me, I asked this, can you ask me the questions one by one? So it asked me a question, and then I responded to that question. It took a little bit of my response, and then it asked, kind of acknowledged my response, then asked another question. Then it acknowledged I answered, in like a paragraph. It acknowledged my response and asked me another question. These questions were cogent questions that one would actually get. I mean, they're specific to, a certain area of library science. In a real interview, it might be more wide ranging, but I could prompt to make the questions more wide ranging. So, and then it asked me a third question. I answered the question. And then in the end, I asked, from a scale of 1 to 10, based on my answers, would you hire me? And it said 8 out of 10. Great. I'm going to get the job. Of course, it doesn't know, whether I will or not, but it was a really neat and interesting exercise. And you could also generate, there's by searching Google, you can find lists of questions for almost any work role. You get sample questions, then you're going to get, you're going to get the answers. But if you want to be surprised and you're not quite sure what the question might be, you could put in the job description into the chatbot and then prompt it to, based on this job description, can you interview me with, 5 questions? And then you could do that over and over again, each time with different questions. And that'll help you create the stories you want to tell during your actual interview. It'll sort of prompt you to think about how you might phrase answers to the questions. So you're going to be writing them down, of course. And then you can copy those answers, think about them, learn them, adjust them. And through the process of interviewing with, you know, Mux AI, with, with the AI, you can get better at your interview without the mortifying fear of actually doing a mock interview with an actual person. Although, of course, I recommend doing mock interviews with an actual person because indeed you're going to be facing somebody and you're going to have to speak your answers during the interview. So use the chatbots as your confidant and your friend when when preparing for your interviews. But if you can, also speak to people who actually are doing the job and see if your answers are actually relevant, and ask the actual person on a scale of 1 to 10, how would my answers get me hired? But I was actually really impressed. I thought that this would be a useful way to use it, but when I actually tested it, I was more surprised. Uh, if you all want, I can show you how this works. We have a few things to get through. I mean, we're getting towards the end of the presentation, but I can demonstrate how something like this might work. If you all are interested, just let me know in the chat. I can quickly switch over to one of our chatbots. So if you say yes, give me a job that you want me to apply for or that you want me to interview for. Oh, getting ahead of myself. I guess we had international programs coordinator, financial analyst, recruiter. Let's see. Ooh, publicist. Let's do that. I like publicist. I don't know very much about the interviews for a publicist, so let's see. Ooh, somebody said a lot of times employers want to ask open-ended questions like, tell me about yourself. Will AI help with that too? It can. It can help you generate your answer. So if tell me about yourself, you might have bullet points for how you answer that question, and you can have the chatbot phrase those bullet points in a way that's engaging. Okay, let's do publicist. I'm going to stop sharing this. I'm going to go back to let's go back to the browser. So we're back to our cover letter template. All right, so let's try. So I had tried this on Gemini the other day. I'm going to try this with ChatGPT. So do a mock interview where you are a producer interviewing me, a publicist, for a position with your company. 3 questions and wait for a response after each. Let's see if this works with ChatGPT. Okay, so here we go. Thank you for coming in today. To kick things off, could you tell me about when you successfully managed a challenging public relations crisis? What strategies did you use and what was the outcome? So then I would put in an answer here. There was a food poisoning situation with a cereal company worked for. Successfully managed the crisis. I don't know. I would put more in this answer, but I'm just improvising. I would have to really think about how I managed the food poisoning crisis with the cereal company I worked for. Let's see if I'm just curious if it gives me, okay. Okay, so then, yeah, that sounds intense. So it took my answer, gave me a little, that sounds intense. It was intense. Can you elaborate on the specific steps you took to address the situation? Okay, so this is the kind of thing that it'll give you. So here, I really should have given a better answer. And then I think if I would have given a more full answer, then it would have given me a different question or maybe looked in a different direction. Now, in my prompt, I could actually bring in parts of the job description for the actual role I'm applying for, the types of roles that I'm applying for. So if I have a lot of job descriptions, so there are many publicist positions, I can bring in the descriptions from various positions, place them into ChatGPT, and then it can ask me questions that are more relevant to what I might actually get within a publicist role. But here, see that my answer was very basic, but what you could do is you could actually spend some time, okay, let me see how, if I was asked this in real life, how would I respond? And you're not put on the spot here. Here you can sit and think. Then later, when you're actually asked a similar question in real life, if I've already answered this question, here's what I would do. And hopefully you won't be too nervous. Somebody asks, do employers use an AI to interview us? Maybe. I probably not, but they might generate questions with artificial intelligence. Wouldn't be surprised if somebody did that. So this is the way that this is one great way to prepare for interviews. At least use it as part of your interview preparation arsenal. All right, let's move back to our presentation. And it's already 12:11, so we're going to keep moving along. And of course, like I said, if you have questions, you can place them in the Q&A, and I'm going to do my best to cover them all. Okay, so that's interview prep. Finally, the last way, though not the least way, because I'm sure there are more, of using AI within your job search is to help you with incidental communications. So sometimes you feel nervous about composing a thank you note or, sending somebody a request for an informational interview or just like basic networking messages, creating social media posts, marketing copy, follow-ups. These are all relatively standard communications and typically not very long. So if you're feeling nervous about contacting somebody on LinkedIn out of the blue to ask them for, just like a phone call to learn more about their job, and you're thinking about what to type first and you don't know, go to Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT or your chatbot of choice and say, hey, you don't have to say hey because it's not a real person. You don't have to say hello. Give me a draft of a informational interview to this person who does this, and here's why I'm interested in talking to them. And then it'll give you a couple of sentences, and then you could edit those, throw those into LinkedIn, send the message. The work has been done for you. You don't have to be nervous. You didn't write the message. If on the off chance that the person's like, ugh, no, it doesn't matter. You didn't write the message. The same thing with thank you notes. Thank you notes tend to be boilerplate communications. Of course, you always want to have something personal in there, but a general thank you note can be included. You can have ChatGPT create a general thank you note, and then you put something specific about something you talked about during the interview, or something about the person that interviewed you, or something about the company. Send that off either as a paper note or as an email. It's good practice, but it's easier to do when you don't have to do you don't have to type up these boilerplate communications. This image that I have here was created by Gemini this morning. It says this is supposed to be a thank you note for a job interview. The image generation capabilities of AI are still very much in development. So if you're really taken with strange stuff, generate images using AI, and you'll get your fill of very strange images. Even if your prompts are relatively normal, AI will still generate weird images for you. That's, to me, that's kind of part of the fun, but not if you're actually interested in generating, serious images. All right, so let's move forward. I think we're getting towards the end of our presentation here. Here I have a slide with a bunch of links for you. The first three are the different chatbots that I used during the presentation today: ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude. DALL-E and Midjourney are both image generating AI. They're kind of chatbot-y. I mean, you give them prompts and they'll generate images for you. There are a lot more AI, general AI software out there. Many companies are using it, and many companies are offering it for free or nearly free. There are also companies that are job search specific, that will create your resume for you, that will do cover letters for you. That's their whole thing. They use AI to do this specifically. Most of those aren't free, so you'd have to pay for them. I'll put some examples of that in the follow-up email, but I didn't include them here today because I don't have the budget to test them out, and I don't want to give you something where I'm not sure if it's good, or show you something where I'm not sure if the result is going to be useful. So I'll leave it in your capable hands to test those out if you're interested. But I find that just these general purpose chatbots are already very useful when it comes to the various aspects of helping you in a job search. Now, if you're interested in learning more about artificial intelligence in general, there are many books that are available at the library that will help you learn more about the intricacies of AI, and perhaps make you even more effective at prompting AI, because now you understand to a certain extent how it works. Or if you want to get into the field of artificial intelligence, starting basic level, we have a lot of great books for you here for examples. We also have some digital resources. We've got some courses available from our website for free through Gale Courses and LinkedIn Learning. And you can find those at lacountylibrary.org/learn. And I'm sure that there are other ones as well. I've just chosen a few to whet your interest, if you will. And then now is the time for the Q&A. Oh, somebody mentioned, what does Anthropic mean? First question, what does Anthropic mean? Anthropic is the company that creates the chatbot Claude. All right, so let me go to the Q&A section. If you have questions that you put into the chat, I've been trying to follow the chat as much as I can, but while I've been speaking, but if there are long messages in the chat, then I can't read the really long messages while I'm talking. My attention is not that powerful. So let me go ahead and get into the Q&A. Will this recording be available at a later time for viewing? So what I think happened is, in the beginning, initially, yes, I think the latter part of it will be available. And I might re-record the beginning part of it, because when I came back into the presentation, I suspect that the beginning part of this presentation wasn't recorded. So part of it will be available immediately, and I'm going to try to get the rest of it as well. So it hopefully will be available at some point. I may end up just re-recording the whole thing verbatim, because I know the presentation. So you'll get it in one way or another. Somebody asked, is this presentation only in English? Yes, this presentation is just in English there, and I do not have, unfortunately, an interpreter, Spanish translator. If you ever get weird responses, is there a corrective measure we can input to correct it as we go? So I mentioned a few times that sometimes an AI will give you odd responses to questions. And the answer is that yes, in the next prompt, if you get a strange response, you could just say, don't do this, or don't, when in the next prompt you could say, or you can give the same instruction again, with a in parentheses or comma, don't do X, Y, and Z, where it gave you a weird, whatever the weird response was. If it depends, because it depends on in what way the response was weird. Some strange responses are that way just because that's the way the system works. So for instance, in the past, I don't know about now, ChatGPT used to have real trouble with dates. Like I would ask it for instance, I actually asked this question. I asked it for, a list of best books in American literature from 1900 to 1950. And it gave me stuff from 1820, like 1850 and 1962. It just didn't for some reason, it was not able to understand dates. That's something that despite my further prompting, it wasn't able to fix that. Like it was just inherent in the system. Whereas some items can be fixed, like when we're asking for responses, for the way it generates responses for like objective statements. We can adjust that, based on just the language that it uses. We can give it adjectives for the way that you make it more punchy or more strict and serious, that kind of thing. So we had a question, is that different from cookies? I'm not sure, because I don't remember what I was talking about when I said it, but uh, it might be different from cookies. Uh, Dal, if you ask this question, if you can give me more context, then I can answer the question better. Oh, I see. I meant in reference to when you discussed how AI people gather info. Also, how does asking AI like you differ from asking Google in terms of the info one? Okay, so not exactly, no. So um, it doesn't gather information from cookies. It gathers information from the things you input into the chatbot. So essentially, I think this was when I was talking about the privacy restrictions of the privacy issues with artificial intelligence. So when you're when you're typing things into the chat, then somebody's going to see that potentially. Humans are potentially going to see that. And so you shouldn't have an expectation that this is just between you and the computer. So it's different from cookies in that it doesn't necessarily specifically gather information for your browsers, though I'm sure the website that the chatbot does gather browser information, location data potentially, and other things that are then stored as cookies. But I'm in this case focusing specifically on what you would type into the chatbot. How does asking AI a question differ from asking Google? So the difference is that Google brings up results that are websites exist online, that are not generated in the moment, that have been generated, that already exist. Whereas a large language model, it has been trained using data sets, but every response is improvisational. It's bringing up each word even based on the probability of what it thinks based on its training and the variety of internal algorithms, what it thinks is the most likely next word for based on your prompt and in that sentence. So yeah, two different kind of information retrievals. All right, so all right, let me just get through some of these. So we had some responses here. What is the difference between free versus paid version of ChatGPT? I've never used the paid version of ChatGPT, but I presume that it does a little bit better at staying relevant to your answers. I think the free version is pretty good, but the paid versions tend to be, sometimes they're faster, sometimes they give you deeper answers, sometimes they're just trained on more data, that sort of thing. So you may notice an immediate difference, but a lot depends on the kind of questions that you ask. So like the things that we were doing during this session, the free versions do a pretty good job at it. I don't know if the paid versions would do a much better job at it, but that's saying something as a person who hasn't used the paid versions. What jobs are there for storytelling in the tech world? Oh, that's a good question. I think that was a question for one of the chatbots, and that's something that you should definitely ask. And if you get interesting answers, email them to me because I want to know too. All right. Do we need to tailor our resume to every single job we apply for? How do we adjust our LinkedIn profile to mimic the titles we use for every job we apply for when they change slightly based on the job requirements? So I'm going to take this backwards. If you're applying for jobs via LinkedIn and your job title is within the general scope of what will be recognized as the job that you're applying for, the people that are receiving that resume will know that, if you're talking about like an office manager or I don't know what other ones we had, but one of those that I had before, if they're generally similar and would be recognized, then then you don't have to be adding every single job title to your LinkedIn profile. Should you tailor your resume to every single job we apply for? The answer is maybe. It depends on how different the jobs you apply for are. So if the descriptions are very similar for the kind of role you're applying for, then you don't have to change it a whole lot. I would at least look at the job description and your resume side by side and see if you can make it a little bit more relevant for each job. Most people have several versions, or not most people, but many people have several versions of the resume for the different types of jobs that they apply for that are sufficiently different. And then so they can make small adjustments to each one, but don't have to rewrite the resume every time. So really, it would just be small adjustments for similar jobs. Can AI help me with an education job website? It depends on how you need help, but if you're looking for translation or summary of what the website has, then possibly. Oh, can you show the question you typed into the chat box again? I don't remember which one it was because this happened a little while ago. This happened about 30 minutes ago. So email me and I will let me know which one you were thinking about, and if I'll probably remember it. Some job websites need to fill up the address, city, state, and zip code at all at different spots. Each experience has to be filled individually, which is a pain. Can AI help with that? AI can't help with that directly. That is annoying because sometimes you have to put in the same, it's like at a doctor's office where you have to fill out a bunch of forms. You have to put the same information in a whole bunch of forms. Very irritating. So AI can't help you with that directly. Now, if you have any facility with computer scripting or the things about programming, AI can write you a script that could potentially parse those pages and input that information automatically. But it really depends on the job website specifically, because it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. So AI can maybe help you with that, but again, not directly. How can I obtain the AI program to work on my things cover letter? Are there sites we can go to use AI functions? Yes. So the links are located in the slide deck. Or you can just go to, you can search ChatGPT on Google, search Claude, on Google, and the websites will come up. And there are all the ones that I've shown you have free, have really good free versions. Here's an existential question. Oh boy. If everyone is making quantitative results-oriented statements with chatbots wordsmiths, how are any of the results still meaningful to hiring managers? Because they're not making things up. I mean, if you increase the sales of of the widget that you were selling for a previous company by 50%, this is a real result. This is, even though you may have used the chatbot to wordsmith it, to share the result in a more effective way, the bottom line is you still increase sales by 50%, as opposed to somebody who, the next person who increased sales by, 20% or 1%. There's we're talking about this, we're still talking about the same kind of quantitative metrics. We're not just making up random metrics. So even though everybody might be using the AI to craft their statements, the results remain. Should we be running our resume through a chatbot for each job opening? I have years of experience and get no results from submitting my LinkedIn profile or resume. I don't think you need to do it for each job opening. You can, I mean, depends on how many jobs you're applying for on a regular basis. It could just be too time consuming. Like I mentioned before, if the jobs are sufficiently similar, then you don't have to make big changes. So you wouldn't need to run it through a chatbot. You might just see a job, oh, they're interested in, they're clearly focused on this area of the job. And then you can look at your resume and you can adjust to highlight your facility in that part of the job. So I have years of experience getting no results. So that's a different question. Whether when you have years of experience and get no results from submitting my LinkedIn profile or resume, there might be some way that your resume is not connecting with the job description specifically, or that they're looking for something different. You could use AI to consider. I mean, you could put both of them in side by side or one after the other and see and ask Gemini if you know your resume connects with the job description that we or have a human read them both and go, am I making sense here? Did these connect or is my resume off some way? So I think there's a possibility that your resume may be off in some way, or you're just applying for jobs where there's 5,000 people applying and it's just really difficult for most of them to get through. So it's hard to say just off the top with no further information. Uh, Oh, I see. Were these spoken or did you type back and forth? Oh, this was about the interview prep. I typed back and forth. However, there are ways to create speech to text or text to speech. I said speech to text. You can speak and it'll type it in. You could actually there's actually a ChatGPT app you can get for your phone and you can have a conversation with it. So it'll just be, you can do the same thing for a job interview. You can say, hey, I want to do a job interview. Can we do a mock interview? I'm applying for this kind of position. Can you ask me questions? And then it'll ask you the question and have the same conversation, but it'll be spoken. Oh, let me see. I see. But is that website MX? MX.A is not a website. MX is a gender neutral kind of honorific. So there's again Mr., Mrs., but AI doesn't have a gender. So I just use MX. Which AI were you using for this? So I've been using throughout the presentation, I've been using Gemini, I've been using Claude, and I've used ChatGPT. So those three. So moving forward, just combing through some of these responses. Some of these were responses to a previous question here. Would you ever put in your resume that you have a skill of working with the AI? Yeah, if it's relevant, sure. Yeah, there's some jobs where that would actually be if you're very good at prompting, or if you've taken some kind of class or some kind of certification in prompting AI systems, yeah, definitely put that into your resume. You would know if it's relevant to the job you're applying for. So yeah, you're not losing anything, especially if the way that you've used AI or the skills you have with AI uh, is sort of more specific than just chatting with the chatbot. Somebody asked, what's the dictation app name for the phone chat you just talked to? So it's the Chat GPT app. If you just type in Chat GPT into your the Play Store on Android, and then whatever the iPhone store is. I don't remember what the Apple store, I think. Yeah, just type in Chat GPT, and it has a version where you can. I mean, part of the app is you can type, but also part of the app is you can actually speak. It's pretty neat. What version of ChatGPT are you using? Is it the free version? Do you ever use the one with Microsoft Copilot? So I was using the free version of ChatGPT, and I have not used the one with Microsoft Copilot. Somebody asked, is there a follow-up class to this one, or is this just a one-time event, one day today only? This is a one day. So I might do it again in the future, but this is a one-day class today. I don't have any plans to repeat it. I might repeat it in a while, in a few months. So I mean, I occasionally repeat programs that we've done. Many employers use AI in initial screening of resumes. Can the chatbots help us get past these screenings? Are there any dangers in using AI to make a resume if AI is often the first review? No, I don't think that there's any danger because they're different systems looking for different things and they function differently. So no, I don't think that's something you need to worry about. The chatbots wouldn't be very helpful in helping you get past either an applicant tracking system or whatever the AI system that the employer uses because they don't know which one it is, and there's a bunch of them on the market. So I wouldn't really worry too much about that. I would just worry about trying to, as best as you can, make your application materials, your cover letter and your resume as much, as relevant to the job description as you can. The job description is pretty much what you have when it comes to the job, other than if you're having informational interviews with people who work at the company and they can give you more insight in what the company needs. That's like grade A, number one. But basically, you have the job description. So use that and don't worry too much about the applicant tracking systems. Somebody asked, are the books listed at the library? They are indeed. Are all the resources free that you presented today? They are. What I specifically did was I used all free resources that you all can use today. What is the links for the pre-record stuff? I'm not sure what the pre-recorded stuff is. I didn't pre-record anything for this presentation. I did include a link to the resume for Bumper Pink Lunderfisk in one of the slides. So you'll be able to access that if you want to. Will employers count it against you if they know that you used AI to generate your resume or cover letter? Uh, if they somehow would know that you used it to generate your whole cover letter, that would probably turn hiring managers off. I don't know if they would be able to tell that you used an AI to generate your resume as long as your resume is relevant. And, resumes are fairly standard documents, so there isn't a lot of space for, kind of personality in a resume. So it will be pretty hard to tell that somebody used a resume unless there's some kind of strange statements in there that a human wouldn't write. And that, I mean, if you have somebody proofreading your resume, and if you're proofreading it yourself, you would notice like, oh, this sounds really weird. And so then you would just remove that or edit that. For a cover letter, I think because it should have some of your personality, I think that using an AI to write it wholesale would probably be a turnoff. Are there basic AI certification programs where it could help get a job with AI requirements? There probably are. I don't know of any. I mean, it really depends on the specific job that you're trying to apply for, because the use of AI would probably be different depending on the role. So I would focus on the jobs that you're looking for and then kind of see some sample resumes. And if other people who have those jobs are including certifications or have some kind of AI related proficiencies on the resume, then you can consider like what are the organizations that are certifying for AI? Does that certification really help, or is it just an organization trying to make money based on the AI trend? Is there a free AI app? Yes, all three that I used today, Claude, Gemini, and ChatGPT, all free. Okay, somebody asked, can you compare a job description to your existing resume and see how good they fit? You can. Yeah, you just put it into the prompt. So you put, here's a job description for a job that I'm applying for. I'm going to post my resume in the next prompt, you know, and you could ask, how did these, how do these compare? Can you use AI to look for job openings? Not in any way that I know of, because AI is kind of oftentimes a self-contained system. You can't ask it to go outside of itself. So not that I know of. I feel like that's something that there are some companies that might be doing that. Um, it would make sense if you used AI to look for job openings, but I'm not familiar with any companies that do it, and you can't do it with any of the tools that I've used today. Let's see. Does the chatbot learn from us as we use it, or does it only adjust itself for the session we are in with it? Example, if you ask it about how to grow apple trees today, will it remember its answers and your responses to it a week from now, or does it uh, reset itself its overall data set? That's a great question. So it tends to, from my experience, I don't know what the official answer to this is. From my experience, it doesn't even do a particularly great job of remembering if you have a long chat with it. Some of the maybe the paid versions are better at this, or maybe either certain ones that are better. Maybe they've gotten better at this over time as they've developed. I find that AIs don't have a very, very good memory in general. So once you've given it a few more prompts, it'll not, it'll not in any sensical way pull stuff from the past. It might gather stuff, but it might do it selectively. It's kind of hard to know what it remembers. I feel like this is a downside at this point of artificial intelligence chatbots that are these basic ones. Now there are some companies who use the information you've put in and kind of include that in a pre-prompt, and so they'll keep that information and feed it back into the system so that there will be some persistence to your chats over a long period of time. So it's definitely possible, but the ones that I use today, they tend not to be that great at remembering. Somebody the AI doesn't use real-time database, so I assume you can't use AI to search for job openings. That's correct, yeah. So the AIs that we've used today, the chatbots that I use today, they've been trained, and some of them are somewhat up to date, but they're not pulling from a live data set, you know, as we're chatting with them. They're kind of stopped. There's a certain time buffer between the present time and what's happening online now and what they can give us. But there are some companies that, I mean, using my imagination, I can only imagine that there are companies that are kind of hoovering up job listings in real time and then having AI look at them based on an AI that's already trained, look at them and parse them and then give them to people based on their questions. So I think that there is a possibility to layer uh, data mining and AI systems on top of each other. So it looks like the AI is the one that's looking for the job openings, but in fact, it's just part of the stack. Oh, I see. Can you show the question you typed into the chat box again? It involves asking for results-driven experience generation. Oh, I see. It was for the objective statement. Let me see if I can find it really quickly because it was way up there. Oh, yeah, I see. So yeah, let me post the question in the chat. So this is the question that I used to create the objective statement. And then here's the answer that it gave me. There we go. That's for the web developer. Oh, maybe we're talking about the next one. So that was this one. So that the next prompt I gave it was for adjusting a specific line to make it more results oriented. So that was this one. Can you make this job description on my resume more results oriented? So if you put that into your version of Gemini, it'll probably give you a similar answer to what it gave me. All right, so I still have a few questions. Feel free to stick around. I think I'm gonna get through all the questions, but if you need to go, feel free to go. You'll be able to watch this later on YouTube, so I'll keep the whole Q&A for you. How are the employers using AI to weed out potential candidates? Is there a way to counter that? So it's not necessarily AI specifically that you would want to be worried about. Employers use applicant tracking systems or ATSs to weed through the tons of resumes they potentially receive for jobs. Those systems often will use keywords to make sure that the resumes they receive are relevant to the job. So the way to counter that is to make your resume relevant to the job that you're applying for by using sometimes even the same or similar keywords that are in the job description and being qualified for the job. Did you ever use the LinkedIn resume builder? I have not ever used that. I've personally just written my own resumes, so I haven't used a resume builder before, but so I don't have any experience with LinkedIn resume builder. I have no reason to think that it's not good, but I've never used it myself. So I think this is a follow-up to a previous question. So an employer won't be turned off if the role changes from your Indeed LinkedIn profile and what's on the resume you submitted. You want to have them to be somewhat connected. So I mean, if the role on your LinkedIn profile is totally different from the job that you're applying for, the person who's looking at the applications may not understand why you're like if you're like applying for a job as a data analyst, but you're a tennis player on your LinkedIn, those don't make any sense. There's no connection between them other than you're ping-ponging data all over the place. So there has to be some connection, but you're also sending out a resume. So your resume is if you have the skills that are for the job and they're tangentially related, at least part of the way related, then that should be okay. You need to get your resume through the applicant tracking system with the right keywords. Yes. So I think this was, thank you for your response to a few of our previous questions. That's a very concise and direct way to say it. You need to get your resume through the applicant tracking system, ATS, with the right keywords. Absolutely. A position I applied for 3 months ago is available again. Can I apply again? It's not strictly related to using AI in your job search, but I think the answer is yes. So it seems like if they posted it again, that either they weren't able to find who they were looking for while going through the interview process, or they found who they were looking for and hired them and they didn't work out for some reason, or they fell out somewhere along the way. So yeah, apply again. Why not? Most of the jobs on LinkedIn will get over 100 applicants in a few days. Any tricks to make your profile stand out? Make it be as relevant as possible to the job that you're applying for. I don't know of any sort of search engine optimization tricks or any other tricks that, other than just being very well qualified for the job. I mean, what other job coaches would say uh, that is that you would want to not only be applying for positions, you'd want to do informational interviews with people from the company. You'd want to include your network as part of your job search to kind of supercharge your knowledge of the job, but also your knowledge of the company, that sort of thing. There's no, if there's 100 or 1,000 applicants on a LinkedIn profile, most of the people aren't going to be selected to interview. So, there are already going to be, weeding out the people whose experience isn't super relevant or doesn't live up to what they're looking for. And then, the 100 people or 50 people or 20 people that they're going to select from that 1,000, from that giant pool, presumably they'll be relevant to the position, but the odds are still very challenging. So how can you supercharge your chances? You can use your network. You can figure out more, learn more about the company to make your applications more relevant, or to bypass that whole process completely and get an interview because somebody recommended you. Uh, Barb, I don't remember what your question was. Can you put your question into the Q&A one more time? Because I think you had a few in there and I missed what the questions actually were. So can you put it all together in there? What was the URL? Is it best for doing a job mock interview? So I used uh, in this webinar, I used what was it? I think I used Gemini and I used ChatGPT. So either of those will be fine. I think Claude will do it for you too. So any of those will do the mock job interviews for you, and the links will be in the presentation and the slides, but also the links will be around. If you can always search ChatGPT on Google or Claude on Google, and it'll get you right there. How do employers use AI for possible candidates? Same process. I mean, they'll potentially run a application through an AI system and it'll pull out or summarize the person's qualifications. But there's probably multiple ways, so I wouldn't be able to answer that question for you in any specific way. What are other cons of using AI? If you over rely on it, and then, using language or coming up with interesting way turns of phrase, I mean, that's something that you practice and you remain fluent at by practicing. If you're always relying on an assistant to do that for you, you're going to fall out of practice at it. And then when you actually have to, when you don't have an AI system handy, you may not be as good at it. But I mean, we could write whole books about the cons of using AI, and I'm sure people have. Are there official and free certification courses available through the library? Not specific certification courses. If you take the courses on LinkedIn and Gale courses, you'll get a completion certificate. But whether employers will look at those certificates as a boon to your application, question I can't answer for you. Some might, some probably won't care about it. How can we learn more about chat prompting? Do you have any recommendations or resources? There are websites that will give you rundowns of how to prompt better. And by prompting, I mean asking questions to the chatbot. I can look for some and put them in the follow-up email, but that's a very good question or comment, because the better you get at prompting, the better the results are going to be for you. And you can do some pretty creative things with prompts. Oh, it looks like actually you could use a Microsoft Copilot and ask it to show you jobs. You just give it a job title and it'll search the job links. I'm gonna have to try that out. I've never used that. I've never used Microsoft Copilot. So the fact that it might combine a search engine like Google or Microsoft's Bing and actually be able to use it. I'll look at it. And if it works well and I'm able to get into it, then I'll put in the follow-up email. All right. So basically, if we ask questions, we should not expect it to respond with facts. Sometimes it will, and sometimes it won't. That's something that you'll have to use your common sense and the knowledge you already have to figure out. I mean, it's like anything you read online. You know, there's no expectation that a website that you look at, even if it appears to be credible, there's not a 100% chance that it's going to be credible. There's truth has gradations of possibility. Some things you look at are probably or very likely to be true, and some things are very likely to be not true. So I think it's similar with the AI chatbots. I would say the truth value of the responses you get tends to be stronger when the questions are more general, whereas AI chatbots tend to be the truth value tends to be less, or they're more likely to give you things that aren't facts when you get deeper and deeper into a topic. I don't know if this applies to job search in AI, but is there a way to use AI in a career fair as a job seeker? There probably is, but it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. So there are many ways to use AI, but if you want to email me, we can brainstorm ways you can use AI in a job fair or career fair. Oh, somebody asked, can I ask a question? Can I ask questions in Spanish? You can. My Spanish is not fantastic, but I may be able to understand. Probably best if you email me, and then if I don't understand the question, I can ask one of my colleagues to help translate. But yeah, if you have questions in Spanish, yeah, just email me and I'll be happy to take care of those for you. Okay, I mean, that's it. I don't see any other questions. I'm gonna give you one more second. If you have last minute questions, feel free to put those into the Q&A or the chat now, and then I'll be here to answer them. But if not, then I'm going to put a link to our post-event survey into the chat. I do appreciate if you take a moment to fill that out. It's a very short survey, but it's helpful to me to learn how I can better serve you with our work-ready programs. I did get a Q&A. If I use AI prompts in Spanish, it will respond in Spanish. Yes, it will. Yeah, AI can respond in different languages. I've asked it to respond to me in Russian, and I speak Russian. it's responded to me in Russian, which I thought was just delightful. So yeah, you can prompt it in Spanish and it'll respond to you in Spanish. A link to LA County jobs, please. Uh, Email me and I'll send you a link to LA County jobs. If you go to the hr.lacounty.gov, there's a almost a direct link to all of the LA County jobs that are available. All right. Wait, I think I have one more. Oh, I see. Can you use Google Translator to change your language to English? You can speak to AI in different languages. I don't know if it covers all languages, but it does respond in many of the popular languages. If I create content using AI, does it belong to me? That's a great question, and I think that is still open for legal discussion. So I don't have a great answer for you. That's something that you might want to look up and sort of think about the different considerations of that. But yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't give you a very good answer, so I'm not going to attempt to give you an answer with any certainty. Which chatbot would be best for searching for general search for storytelling jobs in tech companies? I think that they would, I don't think that any of them would be better than any others. I think all the ones that I've displayed today would probably give you similar answers. A response from one of our participants for the previous question, whether AI, the content you create, AI belongs to you. No, it belongs to the robots, baby. Can AI help find courses or certifications to help make a better candidate for jobs or even a career pivot? Yes. Uh, you would want to double check what it gives you or the relevance of the certifications, but you can definitely ask it, say, I'm interested in a job in IT, working with blah, blah, blah. Are there certifications that are relevant to that? And it'll give you an answer. Now, but again, you want to double check that whether those certifications are really useful on a resume or not. That's something that you can look up that job on YouTube or just type in that certification name in YouTube, and there'll be people who answer that. And you can look at sample resumes of people who are doing that job and see if they have that certification. Best way to find out about any upcoming Zooms like this, go to lacountylibrary.org. On the top right-hand side, hover over the events button. You'll get a drop down that says virtual programming. Click that, and you'll see all of our virtual programs from the library for all ages and all absolutely free. All right. And with that, I'm going to close the presentation. I do appreciate you all sticking with me, asking all your fantastic questions and participating. You've made this presentation all the more better. We'll hopefully see you next week for Careers in Libraries. And with that, I bid you adieu.